Trump has illegally fired members of these boards that are supposed to resolve these disputes, depriving them of a quorum and preventing them from actually ordering the rehiring of unlawfully terminated employees. So Trump has sort of put these plaintiffs in a catch-22. They're told in federal court, you can't sue because you have to go to these boards, but then they go to the boards and they're told, we can't do anything because Trump illegally fired us all and we don't have a quorum.
And so are they bringing actions against the Trump administration to reinstate on these federal boards so that they can go to the federal boards? And
yes, and just yesterday, the D.C. Circuit reinstated 2 individuals on these federal boards, but that is this big looming question that's facing the Supreme Court about whether independent agencies can exist, and the Supreme Court is going to have to decide whether or not these individuals can actually be put back in place, and I think there's a good chance the Supreme Court will say no and say that Trump has unilateral constitutional authority to fire anybody he wants from independent agencies under some magical provision of Article 2 that the Federalist Society discovered 20 years ago.
So then these workers theoretically go back to the courts and say, the remedy that was available to us before no longer exists. And so now you've got a case because these agencies don't functionally, and therefore there's no conflict.
You got it. That is the next step. That is a step the plaintiffs are already preparing. And that is a step that the judge in this case that we're talking about has already basically previewed. He has said from the bench, I think that it is a sham to claim that these employees can go to these boards when the boards have been paralyzed. And I am preparing to issue a ruling on the matter soon. So this case is far from over.
I imagine that judge is now going to be moving even that much quicker, right? Because these probationary employees, and again, reminder, about efficiency and, for government, firing them basis that they've been promoted because now they're in the new job and they're so-called probationary. It's like your efficient thing, obviously. But
yeah, and that's putting it pretty generously. Judge Alsup, who is the judge in this case, he has been pissed off at the government for weeks now because the government falsely told him that OPM, this HR department, wasn't directing these firings. And it was a lie. It was just like a brazen lie. He called it a sham and said it was a fraud. And he tried to make the Trump official who submitted this perjured testimony actually appear in court and testify on the stand, and he refused to do so. So this case is a huge mess, and the judge is kind of like out for blood. And I think it's very possible that he will issue another decision that protects these employees again soon. Of course, then that rockets back up to the Supreme Court, and we just have a version of this conversation for the next 4 years.